Okay, if I can have your attention. Welcome, everyone. I will call to order the Milton School Board of Education meeting for Monday, August 12th. And as customary, we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Action on our agenda. Mr. Nunn, are you aware of any changes?
No changes.
All right. So the agenda as it sits in front of you would need approval from someone, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Tom, seconded by Rick to approve the agenda as it appears. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We are on our agenda. Action on the minutes, which you have in your board packet, of course.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes from July 15th as presented.
Second.
Motion from Tom, seconded by Diamond to approve the minutes from our previous meeting on July 15th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. And on to the vouchers.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve Fund 10 vouchers totaling $1,311,842.35 and Building Fund 49 vouchers totaling $724,423.36 as presented. Just to note that there is going to be money for the referendum money starting coming through, and that will be that's the Fund 49. It'll always be kept separate, but it'll come through our weekly voucher, bi-weekly vouchers. So the same process will be used on that money as the rest of the money.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Mike, seconded by Karen. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I will entertain, or we'll vote on that, approving the vouchers as Mike outlined for you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Vouchers are approved. Public participation had 0 people sign up. Did anyone miss their opportunity? Would anyone like to speak? If not, we're going to roll past that to building and department announcements. And as you folks want to make your way to the podium, let us know what's going on.
We generally do not have department reports this month, but we
Well, I
have.
didn't make the agenda.
I know.
I'm just following orders.
And I appreciate that more than you know. But because the at-risk report is on the agenda for later, and that at-risk report is 2 parts. The first part is all about the data and how many kids qualify as at-risk, but the second part of that report is all about what are we doing to either prevent kids from being on that report or to support kids so that they are not at risk of dropping out. So we thought tonight to put a little twist on it. Instead of me doing the second part of that report, the buildings who are responsible for those supports would share some of the things that they're doing in their building to support children.
And even though the at-risk report talks about children as they're older, we know that all of those children come to us first in our 4K through 3rd grade world. And one of the biggest things that we do is provide a universal curriculum that we have worked on, especially over the last couple years, to solidify and model and have the teachers go through their scope and sequence so that we can make sure that all of the students are getting the same curriculum no matter which of the 4 elementary schools they go to. And so we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum for all of our 4K3 students.
Another aspect that helps support all students, but particularly those students at risk who may end up later on the list and in the data that you'll look at in a bit, we provide some selected interventions and supports to students who are struggling. So when the universal curriculum is the students are struggling to succeed, then we have interventions, we have different tutorial groups, and we also have remedial summer school as early as our incoming kindergartners, who our 4K teachers can recommend those students who really need a extra help in the summertime. And that goes all the way through to credit recovery at the high school level.
And so if that universal isn't working, those selected interventions aren't working, then they just call me. Some of the primary intervention,
One
yes.
call, that's all?
Yes. We sometimes take a look at an even deeper approach, like a tier 3. So some of those social emotional competencies, you've heard Susan and some of our student services department talk about that. So for example, we have the second step curriculum, which is universal, and it's to target those social emotional learning targets for all students. And however, if that's not working, then we just have a more targeted approach, helping students through data, some of the student services people, guidance, and school psych.
And at Northside, next year, we're starting what is called 0 hour, which is going to be before school interventions for our students that are at risk and they might be struggling. So what that will look like is there'll be a literacy, a math, and also social emotional intervention for our students. We also continue to partner with our high school students who take a credit and they come down and work with our students before school. They become mentors, but they're also role models, really helping our students grow, not only academically, but in that social emotional. We also have what is called Northside Connect. We'll continue that, where we have staff members who volunteer their time to meet with students that are at risk, and they get to partner, and then they check on the students, and we really don't focus on the academic piece. We really focus on belonging to school and what they like about school, to really focus on that social emotional for our students who may not like coming to school. So they meet with their person about 45 minutes throughout the week, and then once a month we do an after school activity with them.
I'm just going to hold it like John Lyon does. So, at the middle school, we just finished our first year of our math block. We basically doubled the instructional time in math, and 8th grade math is a huge qualifier on that at-risk report. 8th grade math kind of has a double multiplier on that report. I'm happy to report, was just looking through some Wisconsin Forward, which is our state assessment data over the weekend, and the amount of 8th graders that went to proficient and advanced on the Wisconsin Forward went up by 26%. So we're very happy about that. So that's kind of universal for all students, kind of on the secondary, tertiary level. Like Northside, the middle school implemented a mentoring program where we hook up students who are showing us an academic need, a behavioral need, or an attendance need with an adult mentor that they meet with weekly. And when you kind of look at and disaggregate the data for those students academically and behaviorally and attendance-wise, they've made some huge gains. So not perfect at the middle school, but definitely going in the right direction.
All right, and then at the high school, by the time they get to the high school too, we are looking at a wide variety of ways, students that are at a lot of different points, and as our goal is to help all students reach their graduation. I will speak, Tara Huber is not here tonight, so I'll talk about her, but she has worked very hard looking at a lot of different programs. We have brought up JEDI over the course of the summer, working through the JEDI online program, looking at different ways to deliver content to students and a variety of delivery models and flexibility to meet the needs where students are at. We're excited about some of the flexibility that's going to give us to meet the needs of different students. I also do want to mention that Verlene, over this summer, Verlene Orr, our school social worker, and Michelle Carilla, one of our school counselors at the high school, have been working on working actually with NAMI and then actually with the DPI approved, the ACT, Acknowledged Caratel, looking at a gatekeeping program for training all staff this fall on sides of helping be aware of students and suicide awareness. And so all the staff will be going through that training this fall and working towards the Sources of Strength program, which we will be working towards getting student mentors. That will be in the spring. Then later spring. The other, I also want to mention, Verlene stopped my office today, and she and Michelle took 2 student leaders, Grace Quaddy and then Haley Ale, to Raise Your Voice Club, focused on mental health awareness. Again, it was a conference put on by NAMI, and look very excited about actually having another student organization that might be, it's not a therapy session, but it's also just bringing awareness to mental illness and mental health of our students. So we're excited about that.
as you know, one of our catchphrases is opportunity, and that's really kind of the name of our department, and we think those opportunities in athletics, activities, MREC, do a lot for a lot of different kids. And I can't tell you over the last 36 years of coaching and doing this, how many times I've heard a parent say, I don't know if my kid would have made it through school had they not had that coach or that activity or athletic event team to be a part of. And so I think, talk about the social and emotional learning that takes place in athletics. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of coping skills that you have to learn because things don't always go your way, a lot of winning and losing. And as I say at my parents' meeting, this is really a safe place to have some of those experiences and some of those failures because it's just high school, but we're learning how to deal with that stuff. So, and I had a meeting today with a student talking about how being honest and being truthful, you're going to be a better husband and a better father and a better employee. And I think that's athletics and activities help set the tone as another piece of their puzzle in their life to make things work out at the end. And then just 2 announcements for you. One is the fall sports have gotten going. We've got 2 started and 2 more tomorrow. Swim starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow at the Milton High School swimming pool. And so thank you to Stephen Schatz and that crew for that. It's nothing short of a miracle, it seems like. Also, Friday night we have our annual football scrimmage. We have 5 teams coming here, including both Janesville schools. And I have conference passes for all board members that's on my desk. I'll go down and get them and have them for you tonight before you leave. 50-50 chance I remember, but 25-75 some of you remember. So don't let me forget.
I forgot to mention too, because we've not had board share before, since Matt Kleinschmidt has come on board. So Matt, I'd wanted to introduce officially Matt Kleinschmidt is new associate principal at the high school, comes to us from the Beloit School District. He's an administrator at Fruzen Intermediate School. We're very happy. He's already jumping right on board and worked on some of the at-risk report that you're going to see tonight as well. So wanted to officially welcome Matt.
Thank you. Good deal.
All right. So some of those great things that the principal shared with you tonight in terms of some of the things they have going on to help all students can be documented and seen in our school scorecards. Now in June I talked to you guys about that process a little bit, and that was right before that was going to happen. So in June we had teams from every single school come together. We met right here in this library. We did some things together, looked at your strategic plan, talked about what that means, looked at opportunities and achievements in community and talked about what that means and talked about what we wanted our schools to be. And then from there, every single school came up with their scorecard. They spent time looking at data. Several of the pieces you heard tonight came from the conversations at the table that day. It was an amazing day. Our principals did such a good job of bringing really good people to the table, but also facilitating what those conversations sounded like. And what we heard over and over again during that day from every table, and as they moved into other classrooms to work on things, we heard it even more loud and clear. SEL, what are we going to do around social emotional learning? How are we going to meet the needs of all students? And when we say all means all, and we look and we see data points that shows that, okay, maybe not all kids are doing it, what are we going to do about it as a district, as a school? Some just amazing conversation there. So every school has built a draft of the scorecard at that day and over the summer. All around our 5 pillars. Our strategic outcomes, if you will, I always refer to them as our pillars. That's teaching and learning, relationships and climate, high quality staff, community engagement, facilities and services. And we have what's called targeted outcomes built within each of those pillars. So we have set targeted outcomes, and then the teams came up with goals, or action statements rather, not goals, action statements to get us towards those targeted outcomes. The next step in that process will be on August 19th when we have our big convocation. Everyone comes back together. We're going to work on our strategic plan and talk about those opportunities and achievement and community for all as an entire district. And then the building principals are going to go back. They're going to share the scorecards with their entire staff. They're going to fill in some of those gaps, fill in some of those details, and then their final draft, their scorecards are going to be done in September. So that way, when all the teachers make their personal educator effectiveness goals, it's going to be based on the scorecard. So what we really worked on this year is just aligning our practices to make sure when we talk about our strategic plan, we mean it. It's a living document. It's not something just hangs on the wall and we don't refer to. We're actually living that document. And if we're saying this is our goals, this is what we want to be and who we want to be, then the schools are basing all of their scorecard on that, and that aligns right to the teachers as well. So we're pretty happy with that process. Again, the principal has done an amazing job. We're going to be happy to share our process out with you guys some more. And what we're going to be doing over the course of the year is something called stoplighting, where we come back to those scorecards and make sure that, where are we in that process? Just to make sure that, again, it is a living document and not just something that we hang on the wall. So, thank you.
And I just wanted to add, first, a note of thanks to our building leaders and to Susan and Ryan and to the leadership teams in each of the buildings for their work in putting together those scorecards. And that attention that they paid not only to students' academic needs and meeting those academic needs for students, but also that knowledge that students can't be successful academically if they don't have the social and emotional skills to learn. And so that approach is going to be very successful for us. A few people mentioned that working together, that idea of working together, having that guaranteed and viable curriculum, not just in our content areas, not just in math and science, social studies, and English language arts, but also in our approach to addressing at-risk students and addressing those social and emotional needs is also something that's going to make a huge difference for our students and their families. So I just wanted to thank the group and also note for the board that from what I've seen so far, we have a really strong plan in place. The second step curriculum is something that I'm familiar with and have seen work very well in other districts. So I was excited to hear that that's something that we're utilizing too. So thank you to all of you for the work that you've done on that.
Okay, thank you all. Very good. Good update. Moving along, we are up to our presentation on MREC. Mr. Knudsen.
In your board packets I gave last Friday to Kim a summary of kind of what we've done for the past year. I'll just kind of highlight quickly what we've done. We just finished up with obviously our baseball, softball programs. 3rd through 8th grade, we started everything in April, ran through everything through a couple weeks ago, end of July. 3rd through 8th grade, we had 210 participants that took part in both softball and baseball. We're in the baseball programs, we're in a league with Fort Atkinson, so we travel back and forth between the two towns. Softball is a quad county league, which is more the old Southern Lakes, so it's going to be Elkhorn, Whitewater, East Troy. A little more travel, but it's a very good base league for us for both baseball and softball that we do. Our 4K through 2nd grade programs, we had 302 participants, so that's our T-ball, little hitters, coach's pitch machine, all that kind of stuff, and we ran that the same time frame with that. The new thing coming up, obviously, is our lap swim. It'll be coming back here shortly. We'll be starting that up next week, which we are very excited for. The phone's been ringing off the hook about when the pool is going to be opening up and when we can start. So it's nice to be able to tell people it'll be next week or it'll be Tuesday or we don't know yet. We're shooting for August. So we will start that next week, Wednesday for sure. Hopefully sooner. We just want to make sure all the kinks are good and we're good to go. We don't have problems with that. Otherwise, we'll start the lap swim and we'll also start our pool parties and our open swims up again for our kids in the district. When we have days off, we have open swims as much as we can. And then we'll do swim lessons as well. That'll depend on the year. On staff, lifeguards, what do I have? How many do I have? Is it safe enough? All that kind of stuff. So, because a lot of our swimmers, swim staff is also athletes and other things, and they work other jobs, so it just kind of works around that. So, we've also did this past year, we did the North Side STEM Club, and we will do that again this year. We ran a program of that with 24 students. We also, a new one too this year is we did Girls Who Code, which is a very successful program there. And I got confirmation today that we'll do that again this fall, and start for the school year. So, and then we also had a Destination Imagination, which was our program on harmony, and that was a big hit at the end of the year. We kind of threw it together and made it work, and it's very successful with that. And we also do our partnership with Integrated Martial Arts again this year. So we usually do a fall and a spring session with that. Our new programs this year, which is pretty exciting for, is our Flag Football League. We started that up. It is starting this week. Teams are drafted and ready to roll, and that league will be another, it's Quad County League, so it'll be the same, Alcorn, Whitewater, Delavan. It was a very big successful hit, I think. For first and second grade, we got 38 participants, and for third and fourth grade, we got 36. So for kind of putting together, not knowing what we'd have, I was thinking maybe one or two teams. We've got 3 or 4 teams. So it took off a lot better than I thought it would do. So and we'll keep rolling that. So, any questions or anything?
Thank you, Lance.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, puts us up to item 4 on our agenda, which is referendum updates. I'm going to invite Mr. Huffman to the podium, and following him, Mr. Kramer, and then we have some possible action items after those.
Okay, well, tonight's presentation is primarily on architecture, so we've had a few things that are milestones we've talked about in terms of presenting to the board, getting your approval, and moving on. So we're really here tonight to talk to you about where we are with the elementary schools, the middle school, and then give you just a brief understanding of where we've been headed with the high school. So I'm really going to just turn it over to our architecture team.
Thanks, Mike. So tonight, what we're looking for from the board is 2 things that we need actual approvals on. The first of those is approval on the design development phase for the 4 elementary school projects. And if you remember what the design development phase is, that's the phase where at schematic design, we kind of fix the outside walls. At design development, we fix the outside walls, the inside walls, we've got the cabinetry located, and we're pretty far along and ready to really get into the detailed drawings that the contractors will be bidding off of. So as we move forward, we're still going to be meeting with staff and the principals at each of the schools, but it's really the refined details. Where does the marker board go? Where do the power outlets go? What type of lighting do we have in certain areas? So it's very specific details that we're going to be talking about. The big decisions have really been made to this point. So we're looking for your approval that you've seen the full packet that went out. I think, Stephen, you sent out the full set of design development drawings. And these are the drawings that J.P. Cullen did their design development estimates from. And the estimates have come back saying that we are on our referendum budget. So we're okay with the drawings as they've been progressing. We're on budget for those 4 elementary school projects. So we can quickly go through do you want to do the high school first, or do you want to hit the elementaries? Wrong one. So what we're going to do is we're going to briefly highlight the 4 elementary projects, and this is just a little snippet of what was sent out in that full packet that each of you got a couple of weeks ago. So we've been working with our entire team, with the administrative team, with all the principals, to develop all of this work, including our civil engineering site plan, which shows where the addition is going on the site, where the playgrounds are going, what equipment is being relocated where, how much asphalt we have, and all of this information was actually submitted to the City of Milton for approval at Plan Commission meeting, and we did receive Plan Commission approval on both east and west this past Tuesday. So that has now been formally approved in terms of the full location of the building and the site plan and kind of the aesthetics of the outside of the building. So we can just kind of flip through these. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to stop me, but otherwise I assume that you've already walked through this yourselves and kind of understand what's been going on. These are our, we had originally some demolition plans in here showing you what we're doing throughout the existing building to understand what pieces and parts are being affected in the existing building. And as you can see, this is east here, and we're affecting the existing cafeteria and the existing kitchen there and redoing all of that to gain them additional seating capacity. And then our addition that creates the courtyard with the additional classrooms, the library, art room. So again, it hasn't changed much since the schematic design, other than we continue to add detail to each of these sets of plans. And as you can see, we're developing the wall sections, the details, the exterior elevations, and just getting the detail that eventually J.P. Cullen will need to bid out each of the divisions of work to their subcontractors. So we can just go through each of the projects. That was east, west. Again, the same thing. It's just identifying the areas of work, the areas that we're working on within the existing building, and then our addition here at west. And then again, the exterior of the building. Same with Harmony. We're showing the ring road around the building. Get for the fire department access all the way around. And then we're only doing very little demolition and renovation work within Harmony, just a very small area adjacent to the existing gym to add a kind of a changing room, bathroom facility there. And then the addition that's been the same since schematic design and really pre-referendum. This is the school that probably changed the least in terms of the design of all the schools. And they got an aesthetic that just matches the existing building. Consolidated, very, very similar to the original plan that we had at referendum, where we're adding the small administrative addition, secured entry at the existing building to keep the kids safe, full renovation of their existing toilet rooms, and then renovating the old office space. So again, this is very, very similar to what was proposed pre-referendum and during schematic design. So if there aren't any questions, right? Yeah.
Can you hear me now? You said that so far everything's on budget, the estimated cost and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. What is that number?
Dan, do you have those?
Yep. Right now, all the numbers, the referendum numbers, plus the things that were in the referendum identified as deferred maintenance, some of those are designed into this. That total number is 9,766,766. 9 million.
And that's the
Thank
four
you.
elementary schools combined.
And then the only other question is for Mr. Huffman. I assume you guys looked at all the schematics and blueprints and everything, the drawings, I should say, blueprints, but the drawings and everything, no red flags?
Yeah, no, the elementary schools, the layout of the architecture is very logical. I think when we were at the schematic design level, you're looking to see if the adjacencies of spaces are appropriate. Obviously, the principals are most attuned to that, and they've been there for all of the design meetings. There's been really kind of minor tweaks of what you saw in early schematic design to then what you approved, and now as we advance from schematic design to design development, as Scott said, we're just trying to fill out and enhance the spaces. So yeah, I think everything at the elementary schools seems appropriate, logical in its layout. We've been very pleased with it.
And Mike and Steve have been part of all of our design meetings, so they've been a part of this, throughout the duration that we've been working on it.
Thank you.
So Steve, I don't know, did you want to have a motion now for the elementary schools or whomever? Joe?
Yeah, let's do this in segments.
Yeah.
So that the discussion is.
I know, you're running the machine, Steve.
That's the guy on the computer. So we control what we see though.
I'll make a motion to approve the design and development phase for Milton East Elementary, Milton West Elementary, Consolidated Elementary, and Harmony Elementary as presented to authorize PRA to begin the construction documents phase.
I'll second that. Thank you. Motion from Diamond, seconded by Tom, as you heard outlined there. Are there any other questions about the motion here to approve development design for the elementaries? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will call that unanimously passed. On we go.
On we go to the middle school. So the middle school, we're a little bit behind the elementary schools. We're asking for schematic design approval today. We've gotten through all of our meetings with the principal, administration to understand that we've met all of the programmatic needs of the middle school and that the adjacencies are right. And the plans that we've produced, I think, reflect that. So we can, and they're extremely similar to even the pre-referendum plans. We haven't really varied a lot from pre-referendum at the middle school. So the design here is very similar. Why don't you go to the floor plan, Stephen? Probably the easiest to explain. There we go. So the design here is, again, similar to the pre-referendum work that we did, where we've got a gymnasium space, I call it a multi-purpose room. This multi-purpose room is actually being designed so potentially in the future it could be expanded to a full gym. We talked about that during the pre-referendum, that would be a great feature to have. So it could be expanded in the future. We've got a new band room, a new choir room, some support spaces on either side, and then 4 science rooms, and then some special ed spaces and some new toilet rooms here as part of the addition. Renovation-wise, starting at the other side, we're taking the existing band choir room and actually converting that into additional cafeteria space and a new kitchen for the middle school. And then the areas that you see here highlighted in blue are other areas that we are renovating, upgrading, or changing the functions of. Again, this project has been estimated at the schematic design level by J.P. Cullen, and again, we are on target with this budget as well at schematic design. What's the number? You read my mind. Good. That's the money man there.
So again, the construction and the couple of items that were deferred maintenance, the total here is $7,036,429. 7,036,429.
So tonight, what we're asking for again is the approval of the schematic design phase, which kind of blocks in the perimeter walls of the building. We're still going to be working with staff to identify what's the ideal layout for each of the science labs that we're designing, the ideal layout for the band room, the choir room, what's going on in the multi-purpose space. So all of that is to come during design development. This is locking in the exterior walls.
Okay, likewise, we'll pause here, and this is also an action item for us. We want to approve this schematic design, or hopefully we can. Let's get a motion, and we'll have to see if there's any discussion.
I make a motion to approve the schematic design for the Milton Middle School as presented and to authorize PRA to begin the design development phase.
I'll second it. Thank you. Motion from Tom, seconded by Rick, as you heard. Is there any other discussion on what you've seen in front of you? Hearing none, we'll vote on that. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion clearly passes. On we go.
On to the high school. This is going to be the fun one. So this is one we've been spending a lot of time on. We're actually a little bit behind because we're actually spending more time in the early phases to make sure we get things right. So we were actually challenged by Mike Huffman early on in some of the referendum plans, whether that was the only solution. He had some really good ideas as to maybe pushing the envelope a little bit. And so we took the time to study those ideas, and I think between some of his ideas and some of our ideas, we've actually come up with a very good, I'll call it a hybrid, from what we had at referendum time. So I'm just going to be easier if I just walk up front. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Oh yeah, right here we can. So over on this side, this is the referendum plan. This is what was presented at referendum, where we have the STEM edition here. We have the pool edition on the south side of the building, the gym edition off to the east, a new main lobby that kind of entered into the pool and then headed down to the level of the gymnasium, and then the miscellaneous renovations throughout the building. So over the last several months, we've been conferring with Jeremy and his staff, as to the actual program, making sure that all of the spaces that are needed to run the high school have been accommodated, not only in the referendum plan, but in each of the options that we've developed. So if we move over, Stephen, to go to the far one. So this was kind of where Mike Hoffman was asking us to kind of push the envelope a little bit. And he said, boy, you know, originally, this is the old pool space. Originally, that old pool space was going to become the gymnastics area as part of the referendum. But we were having a little bit of trouble organizing this building and understanding how the building can be organized from a wayfinding, a main entrance to the school, and is there a better way of organizing this? And he said, you know, if we were to take that old pool and create that as a second commons for the building, it solves a lot of different problems. Number one, it gives us additional seating for the commons, which was a real goal of Jeremy's, to have 2 lunch periods for the school. That gives us a lot of additional seating here as part of this. Secondly, it gives us a new main entrance that would be for all events. If you're coming for a gym event, you're going to enter up high, park in the front parking lot, down a monumental staircase, and you're right into either the gym. You can walk through the building to the new pool, or you could walk all the way back to the existing auditorium theater. So it really was an organizing element for this design, and we really like that element. So instead of having the gymnastics here, we said, okay, well, this is going to become something different. Let's try and put the gymnastics up in a different location. We had it up here, we pushed it back there. So we've been looking at a number of locations for gymnastics. And this is definitely a viable option. So we've been working on this option, we're working on pricing on this option. We believe that the pricing on all 3 options is very much the same. Little variation here and there, but all, I think, within the referendum dollars. So in this option, the pool also moves to the back. That was one of the big moves that we wanted to make, was taking the pool from the front, moving it to the back. There's some dollar savings by not having to redo a lot of the bus lanes out front and all the parking out front. And there was some good synergy having it out back with parking directly adjacent to the back so people can come directly into the pool area. So it seems to work very nicely having the pool in the back, and that was the preference of administration and principal, was to have the pool in the back side of the building. We also had in the original referendum space, referendum drawings, a lot of lobby space that was part of the new addition. It was kind of a 2-level lobby that you entered in, mainly for the pool, but it was a lot of square footage. That's the way we were able to capture that square footage that was originally lobby space and put that into the new multi-purpose room, allowing us to repurpose the existing pool area as this new commons. And then for the most part, the other side of the building, the STEM wing, has stayed the same. All of the components are still there. All of the items that we've talked about programmatically for the STEM wing have all been identified and detailed and planned out. So as we were here last week and we were walking through as a team, we said, boy, that's a great scheme, but what would happen if instead of having that gymnastics area here, we put the gymnastics area kind of off to the end of the gym, same square footage, just pushed off to the end of the gym, but not use that as gymnastics, actually shift that whole competition gym out, have gymnastics in the current auxiliary gym, which then allows for the entire competition gym to be located in the addition, separated by a folding wall, so you get a lot more utilization at all times for that gym. So it seems to be a real positive, and I think this is the direction that administration, principals, everybody thinks this is the right direction for the school. But again, this is the first time you guys are seeing this. We wanted to make sure that you're on board before we take it any further than we have right now. But it's still organized the same way as the other option I pointed out, where you enter from high down the stairs to low. The main entrance into the gym would be through this corridor here into the gym. So you could actually use the gymnastics area and the competition gym at the same time. In all of the other schemes, you only had one use in that competition area. This really frees up the space using the same square footage, but it uses it more creatively. And again, it allows for the high school to have their two lunch periods.
Scott, how many, in the new commons area, how many people do you expect that to be able to seat?
You know, there's a lot of space because during lunch periods, we're looking at, you know, seating throughout here as you have currently. There'd be some seating that we'd be proposing along the new glass wall here in this little corridor piece. And then there'd be seating all throughout here, which would easily get us to 2 lunch periods. So we haven't laid it out formally yet. We're kind of waiting for the next steps, but easily down to, you know, get you to 2 lunch periods.
Okay.
Jeremy, did I miss anything?
You want to speak to the ceiling height and what this option does for the competition gym?
Yeah, if we go back to the last screen, that one. In this option here, the competition gym is obviously, you know, a little smaller, and the seating actually comes into the existing auxiliary gym. This gym height is at about 22, 23 feet. This gym height is at about 25 to 30 feet. So you've got a height difference there between those two gyms. And the court space itself is all within the higher space, which makes it, you know, legal for, you know, holding events there. But the aesthetic is going to suffer based on having, you know, the seating on one side and the high-low projection there. So in the other scheme, that whole area jumps, and we're able to make it work.
There's an advantage to this one as well too, because we're actually in the other one, we're actually walking through a current locker room. Here we maintain the current number of locker rooms that we have right now. And Scott, would you speak to what's going on top of the health classroom?
Right. So upstairs, we're able to expand the weight room up here. So we're able to capture some space that was not being used previously as a weight room above the existing health rooms down below and the concessions area. So I think it'll be a great add for the athletics to have that expanded weight room. So this is your main entrance on the south side of the building, coming in high, and then immediately coming in down the monumental stair or into an elevator that takes you right down to the lower level.
Is that then moving the wrestling room from?
And then the wrestling room would go to where the current gymnastics is.
Right.
So they have that full space. We have the entire athletic program centralized there. We're also able to sneak a health room over here instead of walking across the building to having the health room every single year.
Right.
This, for programming wise, for Phi-Ed, this gives us ample Phi-Ed space. It creates a health classroom over there, expands weights in the fitness area that was a need that we're able to capture by looking at that space differently. In regards to the STEM area, we have worked a lot with our tech ed teachers and we touch lead the way teachers and looking at that programming stays the way it looks a little bit different than what we started with. But again, talking with them and really dialing that in, we're able to hit all the programming that we need. And for now, and actually we have space for some growth as well too. Another thing that this does is we really started working on bringing classrooms to the exterior of the building as well, trying to capture as much natural light as possible. That was part of the process that changed things within the STEM wing. We have one major hallway instead of rooms that are interior rooms, so we brought some of those. We heard that a lot. How do we get some of the natural? We have a lot more of our classrooms there. It also brings some special ed classrooms. We'll have 5 special ed classrooms that will be in the upstairs as well. That's something that we're wanting to be able to accomplish.
So the internal team thinks we're on the right track. We wanted to now present this to the board before we took it much further to make sure that you guys are on board with this direction that we're going. Obviously, this is going to be cost-driven, so you know, we're waiting for the cost to come in on this, but we believe, at least on the surface, that each of the 3 options is about the same cost.
And the idea is
that the team had was to come to you guys tonight with just an update, showing you where the big pieces have moved around and how things have changed from referendum to where we're at now. You know, based on your guys' input tonight, we'll come back again in 2 weeks to show you how this idea has progressed or not progressed. And then, considering we're gonna host the community open house during the open house on the 28th, and then following that would be possible approval of schematic design for the high school sometime mid-September. Is the timeline moving forward.
Michael, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the green hallway that's coming from the lower level there, if we can go back to the...
Yep.
So that green hallway by the kitchen?
This one here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So that's currently where we load the van for production?
Right, and that will still happen. That's why we're showing the overhead door there, so that will still be used for loading. They'll just be through the hallway instead of directly into the kitchen.
Okay, just checking.
Yep. That was a big part of our planning, was to understand how that functioned and make sure we can make that work.
Thank you.
So the way you have them labeled there, is this option 1 that we're looking at that has the, yeah, I guess that's option 1. So it's a preferred option.
This is the preferred option, assuming that the cost
other
is
things
all
being equal,
everything being equal,
preferred.
this was the preferred option of the collective group.
Gotcha.
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially getting additional input from administration and staff. Make the flow of the building work better. If it comes in with a similar cost or lower, that's great. I would suggest we continue on with the development.
And I think we're
towards the schematic.
Yeah, we're waiting a couple days so Dan can Colin can put together the cost options, make sure we're on the right track from a budgetary standpoint. As soon as we get the nod that we are on track, we will continue to develop. This isn't going to be the final plan because we're not even at schematic design yet, but at least it's the direction we want to go with the location of the additions and the type of space that we're renovating. Any other questions? If anybody's interested, we can send these out. You know, they were hot off the press about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Stephen got okay, 5 o'clock.
I can send this out to you guys too.
So Scott, one thing we talked about was getting a bigger area for lunch and that, and we were going to have to add to it, but we get money off interest and stuff.
Right
so
now,
some of that money could go towards this to make this happen. Is that the idea?
If we needed it, right now we're not. We're thinking we can incorporate it without taking that interest money, and that's the goal right now.
Yeah. But I mean, you do have some leeway if it costs a little more.
Right, but I didn't want to spend the money we didn't know that was allocated to this or this project, you know, this area. Because I think we're trying to reserve that money for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. I think we're going to need it. So if we can accommodate all of the programmatic needs within the referendum budget, I think we'd like to try and do that.
But otherwise, I like the idea of having a pool back there.
Okay, not an action items. Anybody have any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to excuse Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one more thing, referendum, or I guess business-wise, is our land exchange with our city. Stephen, I presume, is doing this.
I feel like John Lyon too. Mr. B. So the agenda item tonight is to formally approve the land swap with the city of Milton that we had outlined at the previous board meeting with your guys' authorization last board meeting to proceed with that letter of intent. That allowed us to draft all the legal documents, get all the surveys done, all that good stuff to actually be able to execute that document. So in your board packet shows the actual agreement. It also shows the plat survey that shows the different areas that are being exchanged. And just wanted to give a shout out to the folks at the city that have been great to work with through this process. You know, we definitely needed the land to put the addition at East on, and we made it a win-win for both of us to clean up some areas around the city as well as allow us to put the addition on. So is there any questions regarding that?
It's the only time you have to go to the voters to get it is if you're selling or buying land, right? You swap land, you don't need to, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I make a motion that the simultaneous exchange agreement with the City of Milton in the form presented to the board be approved, and that the school district administrator and the director of buildings and grounds, or either of them, be authorized to execute such agreement on behalf of the school district and to take such additional action and execute any and all deeds and additional documents as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms of such agreement.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I did not write that, by the way. That was an attorney.
Just like that, right off the top of my head.
Okay, as you heard, motion from Karen, seconded by Diamond. And I'm not going to reread it. It's
And I had time to type it up.
on your memo, etc. Are there any other questions? I will entertain a motion to approve that, or I'm sorry, we will vote on that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. We
Thank
are
you.
swapping land.
Nope.
Very good, thank you. And Human Resources Committee report, Mr. Western.
Okay, I'm just going to touch a little bit about some of the meetings that we've had concerning the benefits for our employees. Our first meeting was back in November of last year. It's part of the Benefits Advisory Group. We talked about different options on healthcare as far as different providers, single providers, different options. This summer, a subcommittee was formed, and we held 3 meetings, and basically that kind of dove in a little more detail on some of the things that we talked about more in general with the group. Our last meeting with the subcommittee was on July 29th. That meeting we had presentations from both Dean and Mercy about their services that they'd be willing to provide for us. The next advisory group meeting, which the information from those subcommittees will be taken back to the full benefits advisory group, aka BAG group, on August 20th. We will talk more at our next board meeting as far as a board, as we get the results from our conversations with the Benefits Advisory Group meeting. But we are we'll be getting a lot of information out to the board between now and then concerning the different options that we talked about and different ways to go as far as our health insurance benefits go. Did I miss anything, Craig?
Oh, sir.
Okay. Any questions from the rest of the board?
Good job, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, hearing none, we will move on. We are up to Transportation Committee report. Ms. Karen.
Well, and I promised Joe I would keep this brief. And it actually will be. Even though there are 6 items, I will knock these out in no time flat. The Transportation Committee met just before our regularly scheduled meeting here. And the first item we talked about was the discussion on the changes to the Unusually Hazardous Plan, or the UHP. Just to let you know that the Sheriff's Department has approved all 5 of our UHP zones. We're going to be doing some language cleanup on them to make sure that all students are included rather than just maybe specific students or specific groups of students. And then it's off to DPI for final approval. All the families that have been affected by the new UHPs have been notified already by Rightway. The second thing we talked about was an update on the Here Comes the Bus app. Basically, startup is going to be early November for that. So it would be a second quarter, is that right, Jen? Yep. Second quarter start for that, just to make sure that we've got everything going smoothly at when we have startup. just some of the new information is once the parents get the app and download it, they get to determine the radius in which they want to get notified of the bus coming. And once that radius is hit, they will get an alert. And then they will also get an alert when the bus is stopping. When the lights are on and the stop arm is up, they will get an alert that their child is being picked up. And then prior to this all rolling out in November, there should be some communication from either Right Way and or the district to the families about this app and how to work on it.
So Karen, I have a question real quick on that.
Sure.
So if it's not rolling out and being launched until November, I know they were charging, I believe, $7 per bus per day.
Yep.
Does that mean it's going to be prorated, so it'll be less than the original $32,000?
No, the $7 won't start till November.
So it will be less.
Yes. Yes, it will be less.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. C and D combined, we briefly discussed some changes in the contract as well as some potential increased costs. That information will come at a later meeting once we have all of the numbers and the kinks worked out on that. E is the new operations manual for Go Right Way. His name is Greg Miller. He's been in the bus industry since 2016, and prior to that, he's had about 38 years of experience as project manager, sales and service rep at a company called Deluxe Corporation, which is headquartered in Minnesota. And then the last thing we talked about was the discussion and possible recommendation for 4K ridership eligibility. And this we actually probably talked the longest on. Essentially what we talked about is offering the ability to ride a bus for strictly our 4K students, regardless of where they live. So it would be all 4K students would be bus rider eligible. As of this, just for this year, 30 families are possibly affected by this. 7 of those families are at West. 11 families, or of those 30, 7 are at West. 11 are AM riders, 19 would be PM riders. And essentially what we want to eliminate is having a 4K student having to walk from, say, the middle school to East, because they would fall within that less than the 2-mile requirement. But I don't know about you, but as a parent, I don't want my 4K walking from the middle school to East to go to school or West or things like that. So that was one of the things that we talked about. There would be, we don't know at this point if all 30 families are going to partake in all of this, if it's 2 families, or how that would work. But I guess mine and Mike's, because we're both on the board, our recommendation from that committee to the board is that we offer ridership to our 4K students. I'd also like to point out that most school districts already offer 4K transportation.
And we thought we'd do it with pickup points, but not saying they have to be a pickup point, because maybe you have one kid that's 4 blocks away from another kid. But most of the buses come in with, 6 to 8 kids on them, so there's room for the buses as they come into town that go through, each one goes through a neighborhood or something, if I got her, and I think it's a good idea.
So I guess at this point, are there any questions?
I have a couple. And Mike kind of explained the last one on F. So any 4K child would have the opportunity to ride a bus to school?
Yes.
No matter if they live a block and a half from the school, they can still ride a bus?
Correct.
Okay. The first one, another question on item A. The DPI has not approved it yet?
Correct.
And yet the parents have been notified that they are going to be able to be bused?
Yes.
What happens if the DPI does not approve?
They have the, can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So, that information has been sent up to DPI. Janice has received it. I talked to her on the phone. I still need to, clean up some of the language on the plan that we received from the Rock County Sheriff's Department, but it's been approved. They know about it. So in 1 year from now, when we're, Diane, what is that called? The
Transportation report.
The transportation report, we have between now and then to get that information approved so that we can claim those students. But it's approved by Rock County, that's the most important piece, so.
Okay, but as far as funding, it has to be approved by DPI.
Yep.
And this is going to take place when?
ASAP. I just have to clean up the language and then get it to them.
So it's going to be approved for this school year?
Yes.
And it's going to be approved by DPI by this, beginning of this school year?
Mm-hmm. It's already a goal. We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If there aren't any, then I would like to make a motion for the district to provide transportation to all 4K students, which may include utilizing a designated group stop.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion from Karen, seconded by Mike. As you heard her outline, is there any other questions?
I have one. Is there any potential additional cost from Go Right Way?
So for this year only, as Karen had mentioned, I talked to them today, there's 30 families that would be eligible. So for this year only, we can say there will be no additional costs. We don't, the important piece that Karen noted is that we would utilize a common stop. So if you have a cluster of students on Sunset, like 4, we would create a common stop so that we would not make 4 stops along there. However, if there's only 1, that we will, stop there. So for this year only, there would not be an increase because many of those students already qualify.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and one of the other things that I think Go Right Way is taking a look at is just kind of cleaning up the routes in general. Like one of the examples that was brought up simply because it affects my family, because we live on Newville Road, is the buses stop out there. They stop at our house, they drive a house, they stop, they drive 2 houses and they stop. It doesn't seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, that 1 or 2 minutes that they have to stop really affects the routes and how fast they can get kids from home to school or school to home. And that equates into dollars. So if they can make 1 stop on Newville where all the kids have to go, that would shorten up the time. So I think those are the things that Right Way at this point is looking at, is where are we stopping where we could make a group stop? And then if they can't make that a group stop, why not? And we'd be able to answer that question then a little bit better. So that hopefully by doing that, that will give us some cost savings.
Are we worried at all about any of the buses being overcrowded by adding 30 additional?
That is the number of families that are affected. We may only have 3 additional kids that choose to take it.
Right, it wasn't concerned.
And they weren't concerned about the additional.
I think the only other piece that for helping you have a better understanding, remember it's a half-day program, right? And the majority of our students in Milton are housed at Small Wonders. However, she only accommodates wraparound care for a couple dozen families. So that means the majority of our families are getting their child to Small Wonders. You understand what I'm saying? So only that select few are right on site. So this too could in turn help with some of our traffic congestion over at Small Wonders if they're getting bussed in rather than everybody picking up. So it's kind of a twofold because not everyone's able to use the wraparound care there. Where in some districts, they have many facilities that house 4K, so you kind of spread out that wraparound care. So that's just another variable for why this, in my opinion, makes sense.
Well, the other, and to a little bit to what Jennifer's talking about, is you may have a child in 4K that's placed at Small Wonders to attend 4K, but their wraparound care includes Tammy's. They're already getting bused from Tammy's to Small Wonders. So that's not, so they're may or may not be included in that 30 families already.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of, for brevity, of providing ridership for our 4K students, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Karen.
You're welcome.
That rolls us to new business. And we are up to discussion and possible action on children at risk. Report and support plan, Ms. Probst.
I've heard you use the term grief a couple of times. This won't be. I actually love this report. It looks at all of our data from the last year. And generally it's a small team of us, Tara Huber and Matt Kleinschmidt, who you met earlier, spend a lot of time really digging into it and looking at it and aligning it. And then we present it to the admin team, and then they get a chance to do some kind of serious planning for next year. So I really enjoy the opportunity to do this. It is a 20,000 feet view of our students, and it really is a snapshot of how they respond to different pieces. You'll see we have about 200 students that have qualified as at risk on the report, and every single one of them has a story, and every single one of them probably needs something different. So Brian talking about sports, and the K3s talking about the different types of interventions that they have. We need all of that because every student is different, and we have to figure out what they need to help them be successful. This is a state statute requirement. We have to do this report every year before August 15th. We always pick this board meeting to be able to do that. On that first page, you'll note that what the requirements are. DPI lists what it is that we actually have to look at. This is an at risk of dropping out of school. So the one item, dropout, is an automatic one, but all the other items, they have to qualify in 2 areas. So it's not just kids who have one at-risk target. And the purpose is really to do a data analysis to evaluate what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, what are the kids that we want to target some supports on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about each of the items individually, and then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the kids who qualify in 2 areas. So the first item is the dropout, and we have 2 seniors who are not scheduled to return next year. We actually have 4 seniors that didn't graduate, but 2 are returning, which is kind of exciting. The different alternative options that we have, that kids are saying, hey, even though I didn't make it out of here in 4 years, I want to return because you have something that's going to help me get my diploma. The second one is a credits requirement, and to qualify in that area, they have to be a full year behind. Each year, it's about 6 credits that we expect students to receive, and we have 5 students on that list that are credit deficient. If you'll notice the seniors, there are 2 seniors there. Those are the 2 seniors that are coming back, even though they did not graduate on time. The grade level benchmarks. So we use the STAR reading and the STAR math as a screener. So what a screener is about a 20-minute quick test that gives us an insight into where that student falls in reading and in math. We have set a rather high benchmark for the district. It's the 65th percentile. So for those of you that are new to percentile world, an average percentile would be 25 to 75. That's the average range. We want kids to be around the 50th or higher. But if you're 75, you are above average. And if you are 25, you are still in the average range, but you are below average. Our benchmark is at the 65th percentile. So for a student to qualify on here, if they're in 5th grade, they are performing below the 65th percentile for a 3rd grader. Okay, so that's a pretty high benchmark, just to keep in mind. That is one thing that the admin team is committed to discussing, is whether that is an appropriate benchmark to have. We want all kids to be successful, but that's on our radar. The other thing that was different about the STAR assessment this last year is we decided that students with disabilities who have accommodations in their IEP, like having tests read to them or taking a test in a small group, they would get the accommodations on the STAR. And that was the first time we did that. In the past, they have had the same type of testing requirements as everybody else. But the team felt that that was an appropriate decision to make. So what you have in that chart is on the very left-hand side, you have the grade level, and then in the middle column, you have how many students qualified on the STAR reading, and then that last column, how many students qualified in the STAR math. We did not give the STAR screener to the 11th graders because they're assessed plenty of other times. Instead, we used their ACT score in reading and math to determine if they were at risk of graduating. And again, that's another assessment that's really not meant to screen. So ACT is really predicting how a student is going to do when they go to college, okay? The STAR screener tells us what are they doing right now. The ACT is saying, what are they going to do when they go off to college? So that benchmark, again, is a little bit higher, or probably actually a lot higher than a screener, basic skills. Moving on to habitual truants. This is an area we've spent a lot of time in the last 5 years trying to promote school attendance. Less than 5 a semester has been a number of buildings' promotional slogan. And what you have is from 5th grade to 12th grade, the chart, and then how many students have missed 10 days, 5 in the first semester and 5 in the second semester, which is considered habitually truant. If it's a, what do we call it, an unacceptable excuse, okay, so they're gone. We had no students this year that were parents, so if a student is in school and they're having a child or have a child, that's how they would qualify in that area. We had 12 students at the high school and 0 in the middle school that were adjudicated delinquents. And then 8th grade, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, where's Matt? Yeah. They get targeted in more areas than any other. So most of the other grade levels only have 3 or 4 ways that they can qualify for at-risk. 8th grade has a lot more opportunities. So besides the STAR math and the STAR reading, they also have all 4 of the state Wisconsin Forward exam. And so what you have there is the 4 types of assessments: math, ELA, which is reading and writing, and then science and social studies, and the number of students who qualified in each. And what we're looking for there is that they're below basic. So there are 4 levels on the Wisconsin Forward. It's advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic. And so that would be the number of students that were below basic. Just an interesting, I don't know, I think it's interesting to look at this. We always worry when we see how many kids in 8th grade qualify. And again, there's multiple indicators. So a student could actually qualify as at risk if they did poorly on the reading screener and they did poorly on the reading part of the Wisconsin Forward. So they're really only qualifying in one area, reading, but because we have 2 assessments and both assessments are required by the state, they could actually qualify in that area. So we did a little digging, Matt and Tara and I, to see, okay, what does that look like if we break that apart? And so we looked at 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade. So in 7th grade, they were the year 15-16. In 8th grade, it was 16-17. And then when they were in 9th grade, it was 17 and 18, the year 2017 and 18, to see how many kids qualified in each, because those would be similar kids for the most part. When they were in 7th grade, 22 students qualified. When they were in 8th grade, 67 students qualified. And when they were in 9th grade, 25 students qualified. And please do not hear me say that Matt's making excuses and trying not to justify how he intervenes with 8th grade, but we do look at that and try to figure out, are these kids that we need to intervene with or evaluate our programming, or is this a false negative? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, last chart that I'm going to speak to is the multiple factor information. So this is how many students have qualified in each grade level as at risk. And you have a total of 198 students. Questions on that report or what we're doing, or I didn't put in the comparison charts that I put in last year, and there was a reason for that. I haven't made up, but we have made so many adjustments. So like if we would take a look at the number of students with disabilities last year who qualified and the number of students this year who qualified, because we made accommodations on the assessment, that's not fair to compare those numbers. It's not fair for us to say, woo-hoo, look at how good we are, when we made an adjustment to how we were assessing. And so I had so many asterisks on that chart saying this one looks at it this way and then this year it looks at it that way. But we weren't comparing apples to apples anymore. What we will have next year is I'll have the 2 years comparison for you again so you can see the growth. Overall, we've seen some really good growth since we've started this report, and we've started looking at our programming from that big picture of where do we have to adjust. Matt's example for the middle school with math was a perfect example of that. You're just all in awe, aren't you?
We are.
Well, we are, and actually, Susan, I was looking at this, and what you have in the rest of this report is all of the supports that you've outlined and have given a brief synopsis of all of the reports or supports that we have available to our students out there. And this list is phenomenal, and it encompasses K through 12. It's not just all of the high school or all of the elementaries, or it really is a well-rounded support system.
And I'll tell you, it's not everything that we do. If we included everything that we did, this report would be a lot longer. So we are doing an awful lot, both on the proactive of how do we help kids be successful before they fail, and then when they're not feeling connected, they're not feeling successful, now what do we do on that end? Trying to balance the two. And it continues to evolve. The healthy conversations we're having with the student services team, the PBIS team, on that social and emotional piece, the planning that we're doing for the next year is really pretty exciting, as well as all of the academics and embedding it in there. One of the sessions we have at the return to schools, the teachers will walk through some rotations, and one of the rotations will be how do you embed SEL in your academic class. So we're constantly looking at trying to revise.
I think these numbers are a little misleading considering, what we have 3,500 students in the district. These numbers are pretty small.
Matt, do you want to do the math quick? 198. He's usually sitting at the admin team shooting numbers at us because he's a math guy. That's why I thought maybe I could throw it at him. He'd have it already. And now he's turning out bright red.
So I can tell you it's 9% of ninth graders, 12%
Okay.
for 10th graders, 15.4% for 11th graders, and 25.7% for 8th graders.
Thank you. Next year, Brian and I will be presenting this report together.
I have a whole bunch of questions, but I'll wait. Unless you want me, because you know me, I got a lot of questions.
Ask away.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. So just to make sure I understand, so the section where you have the star reading and the star math, and they qualify. In other words, take 5th graders for instance. You have 8 students for star reading. That means that there were 8 students that qualified as 2 grade levels below 5th grade.
That is correct.
Okay.
At the 65th percentile.
At the 65th. So if you take the 3rd grade 65th percentile and they can't pass the 65th percentile of 3rd grade, then they qualify. Right. Okay. Cool. I want to make sure I got that. Yeah, so one thing that I noticed is and I know you guys put it high, but 80 students for 10th grade, that's about 28% of 10th grade.
Which number are you on
the star reading.
Okay.
So there's 80 students for sophomores that qualified for star reading. That's like 28% of class. And for 9th grade it was 76, which is about 27% of their class. Is that typical to see those type of numbers as far as a percentage like that, or is that because of the?
If you'll hold on 1 second, because there's a couple of things I did bring last year's report, so let me double check.
Okay.
But there's another piece with high school kids and that star screener, is they have taken that star screener since 3rd grade, and so some of them are a little less motivated.
Kind of star fatigued.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so this is a 15-minute assessment that I have to take online, and I know what I need to do to get out of it quickly, and it might not be putting in my best effort.
That makes sense.
Okay, so what's nice with that number is that what the high school admin team does, as well as actually Tara does a beautiful job of creating an experience for their teachers. So teachers can go and look at the spreadsheet that has every student's name on it, and they can say, whoa, here's a kid who really scored poorly on the STAR, but they're ace in my class.
Mhm.
They scored poorly on the Wisconsin forward, but they're acing my class. Or here's a kid who's scoring poorly, and they double check with the connectedness survey, and they go, this kid isn't connected to me either. And so it might be that we have to go through the social emotional. We need to make them feel safe and comfortable in school, and their academic scores we know will go up 13% if they're comfortable here.
Yeah.
Okay?
So I mean, these are like the numbers, right? The raw numbers.
They're the raw numbers. Compared to last year, you were talking about 10th grade? 10th grade only had 38 last year on the STAR.
Okay.
So I would imagine that will be some digging that the high school will do. How come they had fewer kids qualify on the STAR last year versus this year? And then they'll compare those students.
Okay.
We actually have a record of which students qualified 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row, and 4 years in a row, and tracking that and the support that we provide for them.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is you're doing the more digging in, you'll stratify the data and probably get a little bit more better indicators than just the raw data.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then let's see. So for the multiple factor indicators, we're going to throw out the 8th grade because I get it. You know, you do bad on one math test, you're probably going to do bad on another math test, and there you go, right?
Yep.
So that makes sense. But and again, you know, I know that 9th through 12th, well, 12th, I guess really doesn't, you know, 'cause if you look at 9th through 11th, we won't count the seniors because they're already out.
I think we should celebrate 12th though, because the
Yeah, that
numbers
is good.
might have been higher in 11th grade, and whatever we did, the family did, the student did, they graduated with a diploma. So I think it is important to see that, yep, we might go from 40 one year. If we're down to 2, we don't want any. We want them all to graduate.
Do you know what the how many for the 2019 class? How many were had?
In 11th grade, there was 35.
There were 35.
Yep.
Okay. So that's good. Yeah, because one thing I kind of noticed is, you know, when I'm seeing, you know, 9 to 15% are at risk. At first, it kind of causes alarm because that's like quite a bit. But if you go from like 35 to 4, is it inflated? But maybe that's a good thing though, because then you take proactive measures and, you know, and stuff like that.
I bet the counselors would tell you second semester, some people have a moment, some students have a moment where they go, whoa, school's almost done, I need to get my act together, and I will do everything in my power to make magic happen. Matt, do you remember how many credit recovery credits from summer school?
We were not able to get that by the
Okay.
time we put that into the report. Tara and I were working on pulling that data, as well as what we had talked about before about digging into some of that STAR stuff. We want to dig into how long did kids take to take the test. For example, you can run a report that'll show you how many minutes they spent on it.
Oh, yeah.
When a kid took the STAR test in 8 minutes, he probably
He failed.
goes bam, 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 bam,
Right.
I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing that we had talked about a lot in going into this is like, you know, you talked about there's 80 kids that are identified on the STAR. When we went and looked at the ACT test, comparing results, you know, because a standardized test is a snapshot of a kid. It's a piece of data, it's not the whole picture. And so there were actually 20 kids that showed up on STAR reading that didn't show up on the ACT. Having said that, I just counted those right now because you looked at what's the difference. I didn't count how many showed up on ACT that didn't show up on STAR. So as you look at those snapshots, you know, you get a kid on a good day, a bad day. The I don't care kid, for example, the kid who's going to college might look at the STAR test and go, yeah, I don't really care about that test, but that ACT test is important. Kid who's not going to college might want to show his teacher, I want to show you how much I've learned. He's motivated, but he's looking at the ACT going, yeah, I don't care about that test. So it's those snapshots that, you know, how how well do you really know a kid? And I think one thing that she mentioned before, that connected piece. When you talk to classroom teachers, and that's something we're going to do as we come back to school here with the staff on planning some activities with them about, okay, here's our at-risk report. Now you guys know these kids the best. Let's look at who we really need to worry about. And when we identified kids, we kind of looked at this, all of this data in a different way. And when we looked at the number of kids that were identified as at risk, including both STAR and ACT, those are kids that we're getting more of a portrait instead of a snapshot of who they are and where they're at. The number of at-risk kids, when you look at it that way, goes down significantly, but state statute doesn't care, so we reported out, okay, here's what it is, we have to comply with the state statute. But there are a much smaller number of students that are identified across the board as at risk. And those are the kids that we're going, okay, these kids need our help.
Yeah. Well, and the information is all useful. So if we have a student who doesn't try on the STAR, what a great opportunity to talk about having to do things that you don't want to do. And have that conversation about resiliency and pushing through things. It's just, every piece is just a different conversation. Again, every kid needs different things, and that's our job, is to try to figure out how to find the right pressure point.
So if I sum this up, so I can demonstrate if I understand or not. So it looks, from my understanding, is a lot of these are probably false positives because of one reason or another. But it's required by the state to report it this way. And really, when you dig into the data, that's when you really find the true at-risk kids that really need the help, and the ones that are kind of false positives, you still, support them, but you can kind of, dig through any, whatever you want to call it. I was going to say something that was inappropriate, but, all the, if they didn't try or whatever type of thing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say they're false positives. They're all indicators, and they all indicate something, and it's our job to figure the puzzle out, to figure them out.
Yeah. Okay.
And if we didn't have the different types of data, we wouldn't look at them from multiple lenses.
Right.
And
So boy, I wish I could stratify this data with you guys. I'd have a lot of fun. So the last question I have.
It's fun.
I got a good statistical program to use. So my last question is, is basically, at the end of the report, there's a lot of things that are being done, which is great. I always come back to, okay, it's great if you do stuff, but what's effective? And you're probably not at the point yet in your data analysis, but is there, in the past, has there been any data that suggests one thing being more effective than anything else as far as trying to improve the situation with at-risk students, like minimizing it or reducing the number of at-risk students?
I think the example that Matt gave, the other Matt with 2 T's versus Matt with 1, is that the way they created programs at the middle school to really address math, because we saw math as an issue numerous years in a row. And when we did the first at-risk report, I think it was maybe 5 years ago, we really dug into what was the experience those 8th graders, 7th graders had in math, and we found multiple issues from early on. One of them being lots of different types of curriculum, so there was no consistency in the experience that they had in math. I think that's one indicator. I can tell you of some, I can tell you from the special ed world, we have seen some things that we tried that didn't work, which is why we continue to look at it and revise it, because we're not going to keep doing things that don't impact kids.
Right.
We have to train people differently. We need to support them in their growth so that kids get what they need.
So like for Matt with 2 T's, for his example, have you ever actually have you seen the actual correlation, so you have actual evidence or anecdotal evidence that that's actually increased the numbers for at-risk?
Yes.
Or decreased
so
the number
what we found with this year's incoming freshman class is the amount, again, this is one snapshot, like one team Matt said, But the number of, this is going to confuse everybody. Yeah, there we go. But the number of students who performed on that snapshot in terms of a proficient or advanced label on the state board increased tremendously. What I attribute a lot of the math gains at the middle school was not only the changes in curriculum, but we figured out that we were about 3,500 minutes short of fidelity in terms of delivering a big ideas 2-year curriculum, based on the fact that kids only had 44 minutes of math a day, and those big ideas lessons are designed about 65 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
That's why we went to the block, and we attribute that correlation to, you know, consistency with the math curriculum, but also just the increase in minutes that we had to do at some point. We've only lived it a year, but the short-term results are great so far, and we hope to keep that rolling.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that's all the questions I have.
I have one. Go ahead.
I was to say, if I could just jump in there from the parent perspective, I think it also depends upon your student and why, you know, their motivation to make those improvements and why they're in some of these programs. You know, as you all heard me talk before, my oldest was involved in the Wired program for his entire, what is he now, junior, sophomore year. And he was involved in the credit recovery program, but his was due to some medical issues. And it doesn't really matter why, but he found something that worked for him, and he found something that gave him success. And so he is, hopefully, is going to take what he has learned this last year and apply it this year, coming in the high school almost brand new as a junior. And I think he's looking forward to doing that and spending the entire year in the school. But also knowing that if he still continues to struggle, he's got something he can fall back on as a support. So again, I think it's the students and their motivation and the families and where they're at and what they're willing or not willing to do, or effort they're wanting to put in or not wanting to put in.
We only have so many things that we control and influence, and we have to focus on that. I probably should have, I know I should have, I'm not probably should have mentioned, we have a new C&I director that's been here only a year, and part of his work is trying to align all that we are doing, the instructional practices to help our teachers be better at what they do with what we have. That all should make an impact, because that's what research shows. The students who had 4 or 5 different math curriculum versus a student that had a curriculum that built on the skills that were learned in the past, there's going to be a difference in their performance. So it's that aligning of all the scorecards and all the work that Ryan is doing, and that the principals support and help carry the torch, as well as what we're trying to do in student services with the social and emotional, and then the kids who qualify for special ed, all together, again, looking at every kid. Who needs football? Who needs Wired? Who needs a mentor already in 4th grade so that they feel connected to school?
What was our graduation rate last year?
The graduation rate last year?
It was 98 something, just under 99.
I have that we had 5 that failed to graduate last year. So 5 out of whatever the number, and 2 this year.
So with these numbers,
Oh, I'm sorry.
with these numbers of at-risk students, obviously you're doing something right, that you're able to get them to walk across the stage.
I'd like to think we're doing a lot right.
And sometimes, you know, Brian, right? We're always looking to see, is this program working? Is it making an impact? But part of this, what Karen said too, is with so many different kinds of kids and so many different issues, sometimes it is the breadth of programs as well to have the different options. Tara, you would speak to that. Is that having that, like I mentioned Jada before too, being able to have that program tailor-made to what those student needs are, having that flexibility, that does lead to success.
And I think that, like, in an ideal world, we'd be able to put one thing in place, test it, and see how it went. But when that takes an entire school year, and you think about, well, we should have done these 3 things, and we didn't do 2 because we wanted to find out how good 1 was. We got to do them all, and sometimes, it's hard to quantify that. And I used to be a science teacher, and when I got into administration, I struggled with that to start with. You know, like, well, how do we know? How do we know? And now it's like, well, who cares if we know or not? It worked. So let's keep rolling with it.
Any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion to approve Susan's report as presented.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion from Karen, seconded by Mike, to approve our children at risk report, as you just heard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Susan, and all of the folks involved in that. That is, it's great to hear from our perspective that there's that level of oversight and help available for kids that fall across a broad spectrum of achievement for us. So.
To answer Tom's question, it was 98.2% graduation rate last year.
So that verifies what you're doing is successful.
Okay, we will move down our list here. We are up to action on 2019-2020 open enrollment alternative applications.
This is hopefully the month that you'll see the most in the open enrollment alternative applications, as we just got through registration period, and so did other school districts as well. So you have on your list tonight 11 in and 30 out. Should slow down after that.
Hey Kim, the McFarland WIVA, is that a online club?
Yes, that's virtual. Correct. We've
Yeah, yep.
I make a motion that we accept the 2019-2020 open enrollment alternative applications as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion from Karen, seconded by Rick, to accept the open enrollment alternative applications as you've seen. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We're up to miscellaneous, and that brings us to our staffing report.
I'll make a motion to approve the staffing reports as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion from Rick, seconded by Tom, to approve the staffing report as you see in front of you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Motion passes. Gifts and donations.
Make a motion that we approve the $225 with gratitude.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, seconded by Diamond, to approve our donations, as always, with the gratitude of the board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion clearly passes. Meeting dates, upcoming board and committee meetings. What have we got on our slate?
A few things that I'll highlight. We have August 19th. We're looking to schedule a finance committee meeting. We don't have a time set for that, so folks that are on the finance committee can look at calendars and see if August 19th is available. We do have, as mentioned earlier, on August 20th, the Benefits Advisory Group Subcommittee meeting at 3:30 in the district office. We have a HR committee meeting scheduled for August 26th at 5:30 prior to the regular school board meeting. And then the regular school board meeting also on August 26th at 6:30. And then we're looking at a HR committee meeting on September 4th at 10 a.m. Again, that's the HR committee meeting in the district office. And we'd like to schedule a policy committee meeting at some point in September, and wondering potential what calendars look like for policy committee. We had talked about wanting to wait on that policy committee meeting until we had gotten information from Wendy Unger with Baker Tilly, and she's going to be coming to our August 26th board meeting in 2 weeks and presenting information. And also Sheena Lewis is also going to be coming to that August 26th meeting. So I think following that presentation from them will be a good opportunity for us to get rolling with the policy committee and bring some of those policies for approval to the full board.
Mike and I just had one question. That August 19th date, if we're looking at Finance Committee, is that also when we're doing our, help me, kickoff?
Kickoff.
That is the welcome back breakfast.
There you go.
Yep.
Yes, that is the date.
Okay.
It'll be 1 week from today.
A quick question, is there any tentative date for the annual meeting?
That is set for the second meeting in September.
Okay, thank you.
20, who we have coming on? 26th?
Mike and Joe.
23rd? 23rd.
Are you guys
September
going
23rd.
to the breakfast? Mike and Joe, are you going to the breakfast?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to just do it right after the breakfast?
I would think that would be logical, yeah.
What time's breakfast again?
7.
AM? Yeah, sounds good. So policy would be, or finance would be at what time?
Yep. Yep.
Well,
On the 19th, we have a breakfast, and then we have a district presentation. I'd have to pull up what time that ends unless there's anyone who knows that it doesn't until 9:30. Homework done at 9:30.
9:30 work, Joe and Mike?
Yeah, I think so.
Do they have it at the high school?
We're already
They
gonna
want
be,
us to run back to this.
we're already gonna be here for breakfast, so might as well be here right now.
1:20 on that, it'll probably be a classroom, so whether you have any walls open for presentation.
That sounds good. Oh, you will be here.
We'll get you a spot.
Okay.
Okay, are we good? I will prior to entertaining a motion to adjourn, I have been invited, and I'm going to extend the invite to all of my board members and actually to everybody in the audience to come down and do a little sneak preview of the Milton pool. Mr. Shantz has given us the okay to do that, so.
So who we're gonna throw in? Better be careful.
Yeah.
That's the pie, right?
We're obviously very excited, to get that thing back open, and just as a shameless bit of self-promotion, we are under budget and on time. So, just want that out there, and invite anybody that's interested to come down and give it a quick look. And hearing that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Mike, second by Karen to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.